not allow people whose signature is keeping people in the slavery of poverty and fighting every development initiative using fake data, fake news, and false information to try and scuttle the development agenda that we have set for our country.
Nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law. And if somebody is stealing, don't go and shout there and tell us that, oh, 7 billion shillings is nothing. 7 billion shillings is not pocket change. It's your president has.
Forget about focusing on the petty politics of 2022 and William Ruto and some mandasinomics you have been telling us about.
The fight against corruption, the gloves are literally off. The 21 billion dam scandal has taken a political twist as a series of fightbacks and damage control attempts threaten to tear the ruling Jubilee Party right down the middle. That fight has been taken to the doorstep of the Director of Criminal Investigation, with some quarters questioning the partiality of that particular office. Deputy President William Ruto was the first to throw a spanner in the works when he questioned the amount suspected to have been lost in that scam. He said the 21 billion figure was, quote, fat lie. The DCI head, George Kinoti, has put the figure under investigation at 21 billion. Water Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui, on the other hand, says the Italian firm CMC di Ravenna, which won the tender to build 3 dams in Kenya, is bankrupt and cannot even complete the Nakuru-based Itare Dam. President Uhuru Kenyatta has defended the investigators, saying the DCI is on the right track on the war against corruption. And then Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich added more confusion to the evolving story about the scandal, saying media reports on that matter have been devoid of facts and designed to mislead the public and tarnish the image of the government. So the gloves have been off from different political divide. Question is, has the war on corruption been politicized? Are we moving anywhere as a country? That's the question we seek to answer this evening. We're having a conversation this evening with Kimani Ngunjiri, who's the Member of Parliament, Bahati. We'll also be speaking to Barack Muluka, who is the ANC Party Secretary General. But before we get there, my colleague Sophia Wanuna, who's the lead reporter on the big story, got the chance to speak to Norman Magaya, who's the NASA CEO, just to pick on his mind on what direction this war on corruption is taking in the country. Listen in.
Evening, Linda. Indeed, we have seen some analysts in recent days describe the re-energized campaign against corruption in the country, but in the light and in the wake of the same,
the ill that is corruption. So those who are telling us not to politicize the war on corruption miss the point, because those who have stolen have used their political offices to steal. Secondly, I think Kenyans go through a lot of pain paying taxes and demanding services from the government, so that loss of even 1 Kenya shillings should worry all of us. So for William Ruto to try and justify why 7 billion shillings will not be a big issue, and saying that people are exaggerating the figures. 7 billion shillings can change lives of Kenyans if it was deployed properly.
Yeah.
And that's why I think our party leader has taken an issue with it, that you cannot face Kenyans who are struggling through poverty, through starvation, struggling with the medical bills, and you tell them that 7 billion shillings is only that has been lost.
Well, what he said was that what is in question is 7 billion, not 21 billion, and that for that there's a back guarantee. So in essence, he's saying no money has been lost and that these are all lies.
I think the issue William Ruto is trying to tell Kenyans is that banks can guarantee corruption, which is really laughable. You cannot steal money and tell us that there is a bank guarantee that you will be able to recover. And bank guarantees will not normally go beyond 4%. So that even if we were talking about 7 billion shillings, we will still lose substantial amounts of money that will have gone a long way in achieving the Big Four agenda that the government is striving for. Secondly, if you look at the whole issue of the two dams, I mean, you have made payments. There are no plans. There is no land acquired for the dam, and you make advance payments. Advance payments should have been made on the basis of a bill of quantities. So if they are genuine enough, can they show us the bill of quantities that will have shown which percentage that they were paying in advance? Right. That is not there. And if you look at some of the statements for the people who are contracted as suppliers to supply goods in the construction of these dams, I think we need the magician that is William Ruto to tell us what towels we are going to do in a dam construction site, what tiles we are going to do in a dam construction site. And I think he must come clean. Because he has now turned himself into a spokesman of those who are accused of having mismanaged the funds meant for the construction of these funds. Right. And I think the issue that William Ruto is facing now is that having found himself in a corner, because there has been a succession of scandals where actually they go to the core of the livelihood of the people of the Rift Valley. You remember the National Cereals and Produce Board scandal, where maize was imported and delivered to cereals. Today, farmers still have maize. You remember the issue of fake fertilizer that made farmers to incur substantial losses. Now you have the issue of the two dams that are in the heart of the Rift Valley. I think what he's trying to do is to try and use politics to create a siege mentality by using the Right Honorable Raila Odinga as a boogeyman. And I think that is not going to work this time round.
Let me ask you this. To those who support him and argue for him that then this is targeted, that this is about, and many of the supporters have said, people need to separate the war against corruption and the war against William Ruto. Do you not see merit in those who see, if, as you've mentioned, all of these issues that have come up appear to be coming up from one direction?
I think we need to look at the two issues exclusively. One is that we have somebody who wants to run for presidency in 2022. And two, that we have the same person who wants to run for president in 2022 who has his name mired in a raft of corruption scandals. Kenyans did not invite him to involve himself in corruption. And what Kenyans are saying is that enough is enough. And they are looking for the high priest of corruption. And unfortunately, in this case, the arrow seems to point at the eater. I think these are the issues. I remember in our earlier interview, I told you that this is the issues that William Ruto has to confront. We have the issue of the land where Weston sits. He has admitted himself publicly. If he was a man of honor that he wants to lead this country, he will have woken up one morning, called the officials of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority and surrendered that land to a state agency. You cannot seek to lead a country and at the same time you are the captain of those that are pillaging the resources of the same country. I think he needs to clean up his conscience as to whether he wants to get rich or he wants to offer leadership to the nation of Kenya. And I think what he's trying to do and his allies is to try and blackmail the president by creating instances where they want to point out that the president has also eaten. If they have evidence that the president has involved himself in corruption, let them put the evidence out there. Just the same way the investigating agencies are saying that his people have been involved in corruption, that there are substantial links to demonstrate that these corruption networks revolve around the people in his circle. And if you look at the people who have been charged, and what is most unfortunate, I think that's why he's trying to find an excuse so that he directs his people to somebody else. If you look at the heads of parastatals that have been involved in corruption, you look at Kenya Power and Lighting Company, you look at Kenya Pipeline Company, these are people from his own community who are given these positions and unfortunately misled to involve themselves in siphoning of public resources. And you can be sure that these public resources are the ones that were financing these harambes that we see him conducting every now and then. Actually, those harambes have significantly reduced since the war on corruption was heightened.
Yeah. And it's important to maintain these allegations. Of course, one is innocent until proven guilty. Very important to put that out there. But talk to me about, on one hand, the handshake closed ranks, brought people together, removed all of that toxic, antagonistic politics. But here we are again, back at it. Every weekend and every other day now, it's talking at each other. So did we open another battlefield, and how was that allowed to happen?
I think what the handshake has done is to provide the country with an opportunity to confront the biggest monster in this nation, that is corruption. If there was no handshake, we will be talking about these scandals today, and the government will be struggling to defend. But you can see now that it is the DCI that is giving out this information, the investigations they are conducting. It is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission that is giving out this information. That shows that there is comfort on the part of those who want to do the right thing in government, because they know that we got their back when it comes to the fight against corruption. And I think those who want to turn this into a political contest, I think we are ready for them. If they want us to engage in a battle, yesterday they said that they have invited us to a battle, and we are ready to do battle. We will take the battle to their doorstep.
Yeah. We've had the deputy president at some point recently talk about there's somebody trying to kick him out of Jubilee, and he'll not let that happen. But I've hosted two of leaders from ODM, Jim Sorengo, the senator. We had Mbadi yesterday, and the guests they sat with in studio both told them, that's the Murkomen senator, and yesterday we had Kimani Chungwa, told them that you're more Jubilee than we now are. So that there's a sentiment that ODM has come and is displacing a certain quarter of perhaps former URP in Jubilee and sowing this dissent for a reason which is 2022, as some would interpret.
I think the issue of 2022 is not in question now. What we've done is that even in the midst of the handshake, we've carried the things that were dear to our hearts. I think for the last 6 or so years, we spoke passionately about corruption and all the scandals that there were in government. And this is the same agenda that we have carried to the table of the handshake. What is happening is that those who have involved themselves in corruption are finding the heat on that table too hot for them to handle, and they are the ones that are splitting in every direction. So we are not displacing anybody. We are not in government. We are not part of government. But what we are saying is that we are part of a shared ideology of having a corruption-free Kenya, of having prudent utilization of public funds. And I think those who are involved in the ills of corruption will not sit comfy in a table with us. And I think that's why they are saying that we are more Jubilee now than them, in the sense that we are identifying ourselves with the issues that are pro-Kenyans.
But who then stands for opposition? Who checks government? Who gets to be that voice that's an alternative voice? Because if within this handshake you're all reading from the same script, there's concern that then government will run amok, quote unquote.
That is not the case. I think where there is need to speak out, I think we've staked our neck out and told government that you are doing things the wrong way and you got to stop. Just the other time you saw the right Prime Minister call Minister Matiang'i to order on the kind of statements he was issuing. We've seen our parliamentary leaders they doing their bit. There are active questions about the Huduma number today. And our legislators are involved in it to ensure that there is justice to the public. There are the whole questions of acquisition of state parastatals, the privatization process, and we involved at different angles. What we've done, we've said that this time around we will take a different approach. We used agitation and street protests in the last time, and which provided fodder for those who are hiding in government and stealing public resources. And we've said, no, this time around we want to sit on a table and confront these ills. And those who are hiding in the name of fighting us are now running in all directions. They have nowhere to hide.
As we bring this to a close, I must raise this with you because I saw it trending, largely a conversation on social media yesterday. Even the deputy president himself tweeting about it, around the car that was gifted to the bishop, and that there were reports that the former prime minister had received message from the Pope that the bishop returned the car. Of course, those from the DP's camp have said there is no such thing. The car has not been returned. He still has it. What is all this about? Did the Pope actually call Raila Odinga on this issue?
This is a moral question. Yeah, it's a moral question, and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga has been very consistent with it. The church has become the biggest source that is receiving funds that have been siphoned from the public coffers, and that extended to unsolicited gifts that the deputy president has been dishing out, and that's why he specifically picked out that car and said he had information that that car had been turned down. Yeah, it may not have been returned. That is what he's saying. But the information we have with a lot of certainty is that that car was politely declined. The Archbishop has another car that was bought by faithfuls. But as I've said, it's a moral question. Our church has to reach somewhere and either stand with the Kenyans or stand with those who are siphoning public resources. They have failed tests in the last 3 or so elections where they have failed to raise up to the occasions like their forefathers. And this is a time, it's a reckoning moment in this country that we either fight and win this war on corruption now or forever live with the thieves leading us. And the church has to take a moral question on that. What kind of religion are they preaching to people? What kind of gospel? Yet you are asking people, preparing them to go to heaven, but at the same time receiving gifts and blessing those who are stealing. Those who steal, when you tell them that may God double your pockets, what are you telling them? Go and steal double. Yeah.
Final question. Yeah. The fact that we've seen some legislators actually rope in the president, when you hear the likes of MP Oscar Sudi say that the president needs to say if he wants to extend his term in office. We had the Bahati, a member of parliament, also challenging that if this doesn't stop, they'll bring out what they know about JKIA and KQ. What is this likely? What does it portend for Jubilee as a party as you've known it? Will it hold, do you think?
I think there are 3 issues. One is that they've decided to use a savage means to try and force the president to abandon the war on corruption because it's turning the heat on them. Most of them are not receiving the stipends they have been receiving on a weekly basis. And ordinarily they will go against the person they think is hampering their economic opportunities through siphoning of public resources. And that's why they are going for the president's neck. But what we need to tell them that, heck, as far as the war on corruption is concerned, we have the president's back. They bring the war, we are ready for them. The second thing is I think there's a lot of dishonesty in the manner in which they are fighting this war. One, Senator Murkomen and his people are saying that they have been marginalized. But if you go back to the issue of this country, his people have had power for 24 years, okay, as president, and 10 years as deputy president. So if Senator Murkomen can talk of Kalenjins being marginalized, and that when we put questions to the use of public resources in the 2 dams, that we are undermining development initiatives against his people, what will Turkana say? What of those who have not seen the president or the deputy president since independence? So it's a bit of dishonesty in the part in which on the way in which they are transacting their business. But most significantly is that I think there is a realization in Mr. Ruto's corner that with the way they have conducted themselves, that they don't have the president's guarantee, they don't have the president's support ahead of 2022. So they are trying to force the president to speak so that they can start running an agenda that the president has betrayed his deputy and derail the country from the war on corruption, so that we start discussing the issue of Uhuru betraying William. But I don't think the president is naive enough to give them that bait.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Norman Magaya, CEO, the National Super Alliance. So definitely, Linda, what we're likely to see in coming days ahead of 2022, a lot of realignments, alignments as well, because this is when the formation of who perhaps will be on those tickets is starting. But the most important thing is that in all of that conversation, what should not be lost, that
Sophia Nuna, thank you. Speaking to Norman Magaya, NASA CEO. Let me now bring in my guests and have this conversation on the war against corruption in the country. I'll begin with Bahati Member of Parliament, Kimani Ngunjiri. Let me get your quick reaction to what Norman Magaya has had to say with respect to the fight against corruption in the country, sir.
But I'm very shocked. And first I was asking my friend who is just here around me whether there is special alliance. I think the person who has been calling us, because I don't think there is that party. I don't know. Because I think it broke a long time ago.
It's diversionary. The reason people fail exams is that they answer questions that have not been asked.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think the Honorable Member of Parliament will address the question that has been put to him.
You know, our politicians.
Mheshimiwa Ngunjiri, give me a few minutes. Let me try and see if I can fix your microphone as I try to do that. Let me bring in Barack Muluka.
Yes. Yes. And,
talk to me about what Norman Magaya has had to say. The war on corruption has not been politicized. I mean, Ruto has found himself in a corner. What are your thoughts?
First, I think that let us get the nomenclature right. That I've heard words like pilferage. It's not pilferage. Pilferage is the stealing of little things that we may not even notice. We have used the word corruption. It is not corruption. Corruption is when someone laces a project with a little layer that they scrap off and then you don't even get to notice. These are people who are basically thieves, if we may call them by their right name. And these thieves are hibernating within government at the very least. If we are not talking about thieves who are hibernating within government, then we are talking about thieves who are camouflaging themselves as government. And therefore, whatever it is that we are talking about, we are talking about grand larceny. We are talking about pillage. We are talking about carnage. We are talking about plunder, where a whole project that is worth multi-billions of shillings is put in place basically so that we can steal, and that the people who are appointed to government and government positions are put there basically to be agents of plunder. And therefore, I want to concur by and large with Norman Magaya that we are talking about thieves, not just something that you want to call corruption. We are talking about thieves who are hibernating in government with the express purpose of stealing. When they got into government, they were very clear that they were going there to steal. Everything else that they do within that government is a point of detail. And therefore, when they start saying that you are targeting somebody politically because he's a politician, I think you are being diversionary. You are trivializing a major challenge, a major problem in the country. And we should be asking ourselves what to do with these people who are stealing multi-billions of shillings from the citizens of this country. And then finally, Linda, why is it that when the institutions that have been charged with the responsibility of investigating this kind of theft start doing their work, and they haven't mentioned anybody, they haven't said the deputy president starts getting extremely jittery. Our people say that the village witch doctor starts getting very restless when dry bones are mentioned. Why do you start getting jittery? Nobody has said you are the thief. Why are you starting to say that they are talking about me? You must have cause, you must have certain pointers that the rest of us do not know about. So if it's about the war against corruption, as it has been termed, and you are persuaded that you are innocent, allow the institutions that deal with the investigation to conduct their business as laid out in law. Okay. And in the fullness of time, you will be vindicated. If they are still persuaded that you should be taken to court, then the courts will acquit you. So what's the panic in aid of?
Mheshimiwa Ngujiri, I'm hoping your mic is now okay.
And thanks so much. I would like maybe to respond on what you have asked me because, and first I'll ask your standard nation because today it has told us the report of the Treasury. It have just said that the Treasury have laid down how the tenders were done, how the payment was done, all those kind of things, it have been there, and it is the standard which has given us today. So I wonder, when we are talking about this money which is stolen, and the standard and the Lotich, he is the one in charge of the finance. And he has supplied all the money the way they were used, the way they were tendered, 10% mobilization fee, it is there. So I wonder, this money we are talking about, which is stolen 21 billion, I can say it is just politics. Because we need to listen to the person who dispatches this money. And he has talked today. And you have written that story yourself for what he has given and what is there in the document. So when we are saying they are blinding people from one side, I agree with that. That's how it is. And we know this politics is for 2022. Definitely. Why is it just been faced to the deputy president? Why? And his people and the Rift Valley. It is just dividing the... We know. I've been in politics for 35 years. I know those things. I know how these people have played their cards to make sure they have divided this country. What I'm saying, I'm supporting the corruption 100%.
Who are these people you say are trying to divide the country?
Well, definitely you know who are they. You have seen them talking there. Who was that who were talking there? You know them. They are people from ODM. They are trying to get a chance of 2022. It is politics. And when they are saying others should not do politics, and then they are doing politics, why are they facing the deputy president only and the people of Rift Valley and the issues of Rift Valley? Let me ask you, the other day, you pressed in the headline of your newspaper, the people in the office of DP, the deputy president, who have stolen. Lotich have said this is how money were used. How did you blind those people in the standard? That these are the people who stole from the office of the president, this is what they did, and it is coming from the director of investigation. The director of investigation, let him not do politics. Let hear him, he have arrested somebody, he has taken somebody to the court. This is total politics, and everybody is going to play politics. If that's how people want.
You're making very many allegations. One, the people are trying to divide this country. Two, director of investigation is playing politics. I'm just coming back to you so that maybe you can get to substantiate some of the allegations you're making. But let's take our first break on the big story. Thank you for staying with us. We'll be back in a few minutes.